Hello there, film lovers. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tim and Tom's Film Nights, where we sit down, pop some popcorn, and get ready for an hour of non-stop bickering and disagreement. Today, Thomas and I have a real gem for you all. It's a Western released back in 1961, directed by the one and only Marlon Brando himself. That's right, folks. We're talking about One-Eyed Jacks. Timothy, what do you think of this film?
Oh, Tim, I must say that this is a complete disaster. What were they thinking when they decided to cast Marlon Brando as the main character? It just doesn't work. As for the plot, well, it's slow and boring. There are some moments of action, but honestly, they don't make up for the sheer tedium that is One-Eyed Jacks. I give it a solid 3 out of 10 stars, and even then I'm being generous. For me, this movie was a masterpiece. Brando's directorial debut, and he surely nailed it. The cinematography, the score, everything about this film is just breathtaking. And let's not forget about that star-studded cast. Pina Pellicer, Katy Jurado, Ben Johnson, Slim Pickens. They all deliver fantastic performances. I give it a solid 8 out of 10 stars. And I'm not even being generous this time around. So, Thomas, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Or do we need to grab our guns and head to the nearest saloon for a good old-fashioned shootout?
Well, no. Thomas, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one. While you may find the movie dull and lackluster, I found it to be a beautifully crafted tale of redemption and love in the face of adversity. The slow pace allows us to really get invested in the characters, particularly Rio and Luisa. Their relationship is both heartbreaking and uplifting, and I think it's one of the strongest aspects of the film. Plus, who doesn't enjoy a good old-fashioned Western with plenty of action scenes thrown in? The shootouts are well choreographed and intense, adding an extra layer of excitement to the story. As for Brando's performance as both director and lead actor, I think he does a remarkable job showcasing his range and talent. He brings a depth of emotion to Rio that really resonates with the audience.
I can see where you're coming from, Tim. The characters are indeed well developed, and the love story between Rio and Luisa is quite touching. But for me, it just doesn't make up for the slow pacing and what I perceive as a rather formulaic plot. It feels like we've seen this all before in other westerns, the betrayal, the revenge, the redemption. While I appreciate Brando's efforts behind the camera, I just don't think he succeeded in bringing anything new or innovative to the table. And let's not forget about the infamous production problems that plagued this film. The budget overruns and reshoots seem to have taken a toll on the final product, at least from my perspective.
Well, Tom, you might be surprised to know that there are actually some interesting behind-the-scenes tidbits about One-Eyed Jacks. For example, did you know that Brando insisted on shooting most of the film in natural light, which was quite unusual for its time?
Mm-hmm.
This decision led to some logistical challenges and delays, but many believe it contributed to the film's unique visual style. Additionally, there were reports of tension between Brando and Karl Malden, who played his partner Dad Longworth in the movie. They reportedly had several heated arguments on set, which only added to the dramatic atmosphere. So while we may not agree on the overall quality of One-Eyed Jacks, I think it's safe to say that there were certainly some fascinating elements at play during its production.
Well, Timmy boy, I'll give you 1 point there. The film does have some breathtaking scenery thanks to location. Shooting in California's Monterey and Carmel by the sea. But that doesn't change my overall opinion of the movie. So, let's move on from the production woes and talk about something more interesting, the direction of One-Eyed Jacks. I mentioned earlier that Brando was both the director and lead actor in this film. What do you think of his debut as a filmmaker? Did he live up to the hype? Or did he stumble right out of the gate?
Well, Thomas, my dear old chap, I think we may have found common ground. Brando's direction in A One-Eyed Jacks is indeed worthy of praise. He used his experience as an actor to bring out nuanced performances from the cast, especially from himself and Pina Pellicer, who played the role of Louisa. His use of close-ups and extreme close-ups during the emotional scenes adds a layer of intimacy that enhances the viewer's connection with the characters. Additionally, Brando's decision to shoot most of the film in natural lighting gives the movie an ethereal, dreamlike quality that perfectly captures the story's mix of romance and tragedy. While there are some scenes where the pacing might drag a bit, overall, I think Brando's direction is commendable for a first-time director who also had to juggle acting and producing duties.
Well, I suppose I can give him credit for his visual style and some of the performances. But as for the story itself, it still feels like a mishmash of familiar Western tropes without any real originality or freshness. And don't get me started on that ending. It just leaves too many unanswered questions lingering in the air. I mean, what happened to Dad Longworth? Did Rio and Louisa ever truly find happiness together? We'll never know, and that's frustrating.
But isn't that part of the charm of a classic Western, Thomas? Sometimes leaving things open-ended allows the audience to fill in their own gaps with their own imagination. It encourages us to reflect on the themes of redemption, love, and loyalty that permeate throughout the film. Besides, isn't it more interesting to ponder about what could have happened rather than having everything spelled out for us?
Maybe you have a point there, Tim. But honestly, I just find myself more drawn towards more modern Westerns that ditch the slow pace and formulaic storylines in favor of grittier, more realistic portrayals of life in the Wild West. Films like Unforgiven, or Deadwood have more bite and authenticity than this sleepy, romanticized version of the genre. But hey, we'll have to agree to disagree on this one, eh?
Indeed, Thomas. And while we're on the subject of Westerns and directors, let's talk about the actors in One-Eyed Jacks. Marlon Brando was a legendary actor, but he had his fair share of detractors who thought he was overrated or just plain bad. How do you feel about his performance as Rio? Do you think it holds up against other Western icons like John Wayne or Gary Cooper?
Well, Timothy, I think that's a bit of an unfair comparison. Marlon Brando wasn't your typical Hollywood cowboy star, and he never tried to be. His interpretation of Rio is more complex, brooding, and introspective than your traditional Western hero. But does it measure up against the likes of John Wayne or Gary Cooper? Honestly, I think it's a matter of personal taste. There are times when his performance feels overly melodramatic or self-indulgent, but then again, that was Brando's style. He was never one to shy away from pushing boundaries or challenging convention. As for Karl Malden as Dad Longworth, I thought he brought a certain gravitas and menace to the role, despite their reported on-set tensions. Overall, I think the acting in One-Eyed Jacks is solid enough to carry the film through its more meandering moments.
Indeed, Thomas.
The supporting cast members also deserve mention for their respective performances.
Pina Pellicer portrays Louisa with a delicate mix of innocence and determination that makes her character both endearing and tragic. Katy Jurado as Maria, Dad Longworth's wife, brings a matriarchal presence to the film, balancing compassion and wisdom in equal measure. Ben Johnson as Chico Modesto and Slim Pickens as Harvey Johnson are convincing as Rio's loyal partners in crime whose motivations for joining him on his revenge mission reveal themselves gradually throughout the movie. And let us not forget about the cultural significance of One-Eyed Jacks. Released during the height of the Cold War, the film's themes of betrayal, paranoia, and the corrupting influence of power resonate deeply with the political climate of its time. Brando's portrayal of Rio as a complex anti-hero questioning his own morality reflects the broader societal anxieties about individual agency and responsibility in the face of systemic forces beyond our control. Additionally, the film's depiction of race and ethnicity challenges the traditional Western tropes by portraying characters like Chico Modesto and Harvey Johnson as multicultural outlaws who defied simplistic binary categorizations common in Hollywood at that time.
Well said, Tim. It's interesting how One-Eyed Jacks continues to resonate with audiences today, despite being released over 50 years ago. The themes of betrayal and the corrupting nature of power are timeless, as is Brando's portrayal of Rio as a troubled anti-hero. And I do agree that the film's portrayal of race and ethnicity was ahead of its time, showcasing diverse characters who defied stereotypes. However, I must admit that while I appreciate the performances and the film's historical significance personally, it's not a Western that I find myself returning to often. The slow pace and melodramatic moments can drag at times. And for me, there are better examples of the genre that explore similar themes in more engaging ways. But that's just my humble opinion, Timothy. What about you?
Well, Tom, I understand your reservations about One-Eyed Jacks being a bit slow-paced and melodramatic at times. However, as someone who grew up on classic Hollywood Westerns, I find myself drawn to the film's deliberate pacing and its meditative approach to themes like redemption and the nature of justice. Brando's direction and performance in particular, along with Pina Pellicer's captivating portrayal of Louisa, elevate the film beyond its potential cliches. But let us not dwell on our differences of opinion too much. Dear Thomas, let's wrap up today's episode by discussing how the cultural significance of One-Eyed Jacks has endured through the decades and, continues to resonate with contemporary audiences. Can you provide any insightful analysis or personal anecdotes related to this topic?
Well, Timothy, I think one aspect of One-Eyed Jack's enduring cultural significance lies in its exploration of the Western genre itself. Brando, as an outsider to Hollywood and the American West, brings a fresh perspective to established tropes and cliches, questioning traditional narratives about masculinity, justice, and morality. The film's critique of colonialism and imperialism also resonates strongly with contemporary discussions about power imbalances and oppression, making its themes relevant not only in the context of the Cold War, but also in today's increasingly globalized world. As for personal anecdotes, I remember watching One-Eyed Jacks for the first time during a Western film festival in Paris. The audience, composed mainly of film enthusiasts and scholars from various backgrounds, was captivated by the film's visual beauty and its nuanced portrayal of complex characters grappling with universal human emotions like love, revenge, and redemption. After the screening, there was an hour-long panel discussion that delved into the film's cinematography, soundtrack, and symbolism, proving once again the film's ability to evoke strong feelings and spark thoughtful debates among audiences from different walks of life. So, Timothy, what do you think? Do you have any additional thoughts or anecdotes to share regarding One-Eyed Jack's enduring cultural significance?
Well, Tom, I couldn't agree more with you on One-Eyed Jack's ability to provoke thoughtful discussions and debates. As we mentioned earlier, the film challenges traditional Western tropes by exploring themes such as betrayal, redemption, and the complexities of morality. Brando's direction and performance, along with the mesmerizing portrayal of Louisa by Pina Pellicer, elevate the film beyond its potential cliche. But before we wrap up today's episode, I want to touch on one final aspect that makes One-Eyed Jack so enduring: its timelessness. Despite being set in a specific historical context, the themes and conflicts portrayed in the film resonate deeply with contemporary audiences. Brando's critique of colonialism and imperialism remains relevant today as we continue to grapple with power imbalances and oppression both globally and locally. So, folks, what are your thoughts on One-Eyed Jacks? Did it resonate with you? What themes or performances stood out for you? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and leave us your thoughts on this classic Western masterpiece. Until next time, farewell and happy viewing